like the doctors made him cry. Like, just let him be, let him back up, help him to his feet, you know, whatever has to happen. But I do feel like that part was handled wrong. But in my opinion, Joe Rogan, that was amazing. Don't give Joe shit for that.
Yeah, I agree. Real quick, in the commentating of the night, I really love the 3-person panel. Anik, Cormier, and Joe. Joe Rogan, though, as we were saying here at Labby since day one, as soon as Jimmy Smith came on, that's the replacement.
Before Jimmy Smith.
Yep. Well, we were saying this is especially the replacement. We were actually
saying before Jimmy Smith how good DC and Dom were doing that. I'm not missing Joe as much as I thought.
Yep. Anik stepped it up too. People are not giving him credit.
Yeah.
But Joe is really just like
my boyfriend, who's my boyfriend that does it in Europe. Tom Hardy.
Oh, Dan Hardy.
Dan Hardy.
So, Joe, though, is talking tons of shit on the refs, on the judging, saying what he wants. I really like the looseness Joe has because he's saying shit that other people can't get away with because he's got a backup job. He's got a podcast about it.
He got fuck you money.
He does have
Joe
fuck
Rogan
you money.
has fuck you money. In all intents and purposes, he might be the second biggest radio show in the world behind Howard Stern.
Yeah.
If not bigger because of
serious lies about their fucking.
Well, I think they had like 30 million subscribers, which, you know, let's say probably a majority of those are listening to Howard, but Joe doesn't have to put advertising. He doesn't have to do shit for his. He's still going to make a mint, and he can add all the advertising into it, and he has on it, and he can have on his friends and promote their podcast and help them out, and like that whole network's growing. It's not just serious brass.
So even Daniel Cormier a few times was like, "Oh, Joe Rogan, somebody come get Joe Rogan."
Joe Rogan trying to get me in trouble with that lady.
Somebody come get Joe Rogan.
Stop talking about Adelaide Bird. He's trying to get me in trouble with that lady.
I love it because Cormier's a fighter, and he's like, "This bitch might call my fight."
And Joe Rogan was already letting us know that he is going to be doing UFC 223, the Khabib Ferguson and JJ Rose. And then he was like, "You DC, if you're not with me," because it sounded like DC might not be at the table with him. But he said,
right.
But I'm going to find you for
doing
that Rose JJ fight, and if Rose wins again, I want Thug Rose! Thug Rose!
We gonna be cheek to cheek, Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
We gonna be
kissing. We gonna be kissing. They were funny. They were cracking me up. Oh, and then you better be careful. What about if JJ wins? I don't want the boogie woman to come get me. That shit was funny.
With all of that.
Which I have to say, Joe Rogan, please, this week, easy peasy. Can you have DC on? I need to see 3 hours of you guys together. It really made me love Joe Rogan again. I need to see that kind of side of him and not just these scientists after political guys on the JRE show.
Right.
After Archer, after Archer, after Archer. After Bigfoot. Let's talk about Bigfoot. No, let's talk about Daniel Cormier.
That fight, though, with Khabib versus Tony Ferguson, I almost don't want to say it out loud because it's holding on by such a fucking thread right now that to utter the wrong words around those motherfuckers, that fight could be pulled. So I want to get hyped.
And no one even joke around about it because I'm automatically going to
ready to retweet that shit. Ready to retweet that shit.
Motherfucker, I knew it. I knew it.
Yep. So we're hanging on by a thread. I can't. My nerves can't take it. Let's just slow down on that one. And that's the other reason why
I believe Dana hasn't stripped Conor, because I believe if we feel this way, he's like, I don't want to strip my money bags of this belt and this fight never happens. And then I have Tony sitting there as a dead champion with no one left to fight in the division.
Just wrap either of those fighters in bubble wrap, put them in an isolation tank, put them in a jail.
Good way to say it.
Dude, those fucking...
That is a good way
chill
to say
out.
it.
Just work on your cardio.
That fight card 223 is like
Hype
205.
City. Might have to pay some money for that one.
Oh, yeah. I can't even deal.
So, to the co-main event, the real main event, we
have... Sugar High, Sugar Shane, I love you. We might have to make a Sugar Shane.
I love you, Sugar
I love you, Sugar.
I love you.
I might have, but we might have to make a cool Sugar Shane shirt. And while we're talking about shirts, you can get our Trust Us Man on, you can look on our Twitter. We have some place where you can buy that shirt. Our Usman shirt, that's for any ride or die.
This is why you trust us, man.
Yeah.
Because we had a hell of a night. You also remember to subscribe wherever you can.
Oh, yeah, hit that little bell.
That's what I was about to say.
I have to say one other thing. I don't think we say this enough. Thank you. Thanks for listening, and we love you guys.
All of them. Even Ollie himself, not Oily, which I think
Oily.
I think Oily's way fucking better of a name. Oily Dicko.
Unless your name's Oliver, then it's...
Which is Ollie Dicko, apparently.
Yeah.
So
thank you. And he had his own Leslie Smith underdog pick, and he went with Brian Ortega, like Lesbo.
And Lesbo was 100% spot on. Frankie Edgar did not need to take this fight, like Beneil Dariush. Just saying. Both of those fighters could have benefited from playing this game that everyone else is. And this is why a lot of these fighters right now are not taking fights and not doing that, because Frankie Edgar was the number 2 about to get a title shot, and now he's at the back of the line. Back of the line. Same with Dariush. Back of the line. And they now potentially are making less money. They now potentially are making less sponsorships, getting less points. Frankie, not as much as Dariush because he has such a long following. Yeah. But that's why the game is played the way it's being played now, unfortunately. Ortega,
you have to
doing
say,
okay
though,
about
Frankie Edgar is Conor McGregor actually tweeted it out, but I think Max Holloway tweeted out some great stuff too. He didn't have to take this fight at all. I would find the words that Max Holloway wrote. They were actually a lot more poetic and touching than Conor McGregor's.
The same thing, a real fighter.
A real fighter. Yep. And that's one of the beautiful parts about this fight for Frankie Edgar. I like that he still got in there. I still think he's a dangerous guy, and usually at a guy at his age, I'd want to fade, but Frankie Edgar's got some fights left in him. Oh. As bad as this fight looked at the end, I thought he was looking tight at the beginning. He was doing everything. And then I was wondering this for the fight, and I was going to ask you about it afterward when I replayed the fight in my head. Do you think that first triangle attempt that T-City went for was purely a Josh to get Frankie nervous about a different thing to then go in with the striking? Because he kept saying it over and over again, and then it looked like his game plan was completely different. It looked like he actually went in to strike this time and got Frankie all worried about the triangle.
Sure.
And so then this is really the first time that we've ever seen Frankie in there, or first time I can remember with my watching career, that Frankie didn't really have the upper hand on the ground where he knew it, like a comfort zone.
He could have felt that on the ground, but I was assuming, and Frankie was saying, like, I'm okay on the ground, but did try to get out of there. Frankie did stay away from it. A lot of people have said the first time Frankie's ever been finished, ever, was against Brian T-City.
If he had him worried about it once, and Brian T-City, he said he weighed, I think, 168 pounds when he walked in.
That's not unusual for Frankie, though, as far as seeing those guys, because he's fought many guys
but for
that are
that
big.
Most of the guys that are bigger than him, Frankie doesn't have to worry about them taking him down when he gets inside with a shorter reach.
Sure.
So I felt like it was harder for Frankie to find that reach at all, because he was also worried about that takedown once he was up close.
Frankie actually had 3-inch reach advantage, remember?
Oh, yeah, monkey arm.
Yeah,
that's
big
so
old,
weird.
long old arms.
But I don't reach advantage with just the arms when you have height involved.
Right.
It doesn't translate as well as in boxing.
Frankie looked good. Both looked good. T-City, what I really loved about him, even though we didn't see that gas tank and all that later on, but Frankie's still top dog in that. He's not going to move too far back down. What started off the finish in the beginning of the first round was a elbow. T-City landed an inside elbow, but he said the same things. Like, once you get past my arms, this is what Stefan Struve should do. Once you get past that punch, I got my elbows. I should use them. It wobbled Frankie, and then Frankie went to immediately clinch because he's hurt, and T-City threw a few punches, and an uppercut comes right underneath and off of his feet. Frankie Edgar was literally off of his feet, out on the ground, 2 hammer fists just to make sure. I don't think it was a late stoppage. And just for people that would have said it was early, I think those 2 punches, it was definitive. He wasn't out cold. Frankie wasn't out cold, but it was over. It was over. There's no way around it. Some people on Twitter were like, oh, he could have taken more. Why?
And that's the other argument, too. These are our legends.
Yes.
Like, our Mark Hunts and our Frankie Edgars and we got to protect them. And that's why we want the best refs in there during those times. I do not want them taking 3
That was a great stop.
Even think back to the Daniel Cormier-John Jones fight. I don't need DC taking 2 extra elbows. Right. I don't need Francis Ngannou laying 1 extra punch, because that 1 extra punch is 1 fight these guys might not have later on because of damage.
A year of their life, literally.
This is probably another reason that we hype Leslie Smith so much as our underdog all the time is because her fight for these fighters in the union. We love fighters. We might talk shit sometimes, but we want these people to thrive. We want to see them in every aspect of the same way you guys see your football players and your basketball players through commercials and even like old ass Joe Montana selling arthritis medication. That's what I want to see Chuck Liddell doing in the next 10 years. Like, I want to see these fighters safe and protected, and it starts with that kind of shit. I don't want Frankie Edgar taking 2 other punches so some Twitter bug in his basement can feel good about that stoppage.
A solid stoppage. So that ref actually, and I didn't grab his name, was the same ref that called the CB Hector Lombard fight, which, as I was saying before, I really like that ref because he went and asked other refs before that disqualification and didn't just make because once he does a certain thing, it's fuck. Once he waves his hands, doesn't matter. No one can come in. But he had the sound of mind to not wave that fight off, ask other refs, and then came up with the DQ. Same with this fight, as we're saying. He came in and did the right stop. I really like that guy. We haven't seen him too much in there. Just saying.
And speaking of guys that we didn't know their name, and I wanted to give a proper shout out to, and I'm sorry it's after the loss, but Frankie Edgar's striking coach.
Mark Henry.
Yeah.
Mark Henry.
We remembered it right after we got off air, and we were like, damn, we should have known that name and then some. So Mark Henry, shout out. Elite coach, and Frankie's striking looked amazing. The big surprise, I think, to everyone involved was how good T-City's striking looked.
Yep. And all of a sudden, the 145 division is shooking up for the battle.
And are you excited about Brian versus Max?
All fucking day. That's a nasty for anybody.
That's a good fight.
That's a fun.
The number one reason though I'm excited about that fight is, in my opinion, both dudes are kind of ready to move up to 155.
That's exactly what I'm thinking.
So 2 heavyweights like that, 2 tall guys like that, that's a good fight.
Khabib versus T-City off of his back? Think about that. Top wrestling versus somebody who's ultra nasty on the ground, but we have that.
Once we get to 155, but I will be honest, by the time Brian Ortega and Max walk to 155, Khabib's moving up to, there will be 70, a new division
or 65.
Yeah, there will be a new division. Connor's already chatting about this division. I think it's all prepping for this Connor GSP or the Connor Nate 3, but either way, we're going to get that division between 170 and 155.
Hope so. To the main event, we have Christiana Cyborg being a minus 1,600 favorite against debuting Kunitskaya, getting paid $100,000, no win money bonus. First time she's been at the main event, and she had a good showing. She got hurt initially in that first round.
Very first punch.
Got hurt and went directly to a low single. Ended up actually taking down Cyborg.
No, it wasn't even. Was it an ankle pick?
She
fell right to her ankle. Peek.
It wasn't an ankle pick because that's a different movement. It was a low single. They call it I learned it as a frog hop. You could call it an ankle pick. Either way, it was on a single leg. She put the shin right in her clavicle and pulled it down. Cyborg went down. Did this end in the first or second round? First round at the end of the first.
3:25 in round 1.
Cyborg got up.
There was a few minutes that we were like, Cyborg never looked scared. You even mentioned it one time that Kunitskaya got her up against and looked like she was attempting a submission up against the cage, and you're like, look at Cyborg is literally laughing.
She's laughing and smiling, and she was. She's like, oh, this lady's gonna get me, but Cyborg trains with some beasts of people. Minus 1,600. What is there to break down? We need Megan Anderson, or that's the only really fight.
Megan Anderson or Demetrius Johnson. Those are really the only fights left for
her. For reals.
She's just so damn well rounded.
All the way around.
She's just so damn well rounded. The UFC is going to do her a disservice if they keep letting her meat grind the 135 division. It also, you could have had a Kunitskaya come into your 135, given her 2 fights. She could have been undefeated, and now people are interested against her and Nunes. Now, you've taken every single new girl coming into the UFC and given them this friggin' loss on their record versus Chris Cyborg. It doesn't make any sense to me. You need 145s. You need one, even if they're 145s, at least it's a division you're building.
Right. As far as Cyborg, don't need to really break down her future. She's going to be a champ until she probably gets out of here, unless we see someone who's really up and coming, which that's not a near prospect. Even Anderson's going to have a tough time with her.
I do not know why the UFC is making such a hard time of bringing Anderson in. I think they were going to for a period, and she got injured. Visa issues. Oh, she's
all
Australian,
visa.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. All visa issues. With Kunitskaya, though, I'm going to bet her in a couple other fights. She took down Cyborg, got right to her back. didn't really show the striking, but that's because she immediately took a punch and was fucking 2 sheets to the wind. She was
Well,
dazed
she did
and
something
confused.
really stupid. She actually said Cyborg doesn't knock out people like Holly knocks people out.
She said Cyborg doesn't have that much power. Yeah, right, sucker. Your knees showed she doesn't have that. Your knees went whoop, and you went right for that fucking ankle.
I thought Chris Cyborg became the Boogie Woman. I was like, run, Kunitskaya, run! I saw the anger build in Cyborg's face. All right, this is shit. Because Cyborg kind of wants to show us now, like, look at my whole skill set. And she got pissed. You could see that, like, all right, I got this fly around me.
What I loved about Kunitskaya, against somebody else, she gets hurt, takes him down, she wins that fight if she gets to their back and is able to submit him.
I agree.
She did that to Cyborg. She's going to be able to do that to a lot of other women that aren't there. There's money.
And in the 135 division, I really like Kunitskaya going forward. In her
she could be a contender. Give her time, though. She's growing.
Something that I have to say about Sugar Shane, since we're talking about this, and there's really not too much to break down about Christiana and Cyborg. Sugar Shane, one of the things I liked best about his fight, and we talked about it, is his patience to not rush in once he had Sohamthath.
Agreed.
He really, the amount of growth I'm seeing in this kid just in the last fight is like, holy
Same with
hell.
Ortiz.
Yeah, very good point.
But both very cool and composed and realized Sohamthath,
Doesn't he kind of look like Dustin Ortiz?
Oh,
just the hair.
Just
crazy hair.
Yeah, they both had it cornered.
Oh, and you said this too. Sugar Shane had the best braid job we've seen.
Ortega did.
Oh, Brian Ortega. Oh, I was talking about Sugar Shane looks like not somebody that fought on this fight. Dustin Ortiz, a little bit.
Why am I blanking on Dustin Ortiz?
He's that guy with curly hair.
Oh, yeah, out of 125.
Yeah, a little bit. But Ortega had tightest braid job we've seen.
By far.
There is a sister out there.
So dope.
There is a sister out there that should be proud of her work.
Yeah, that was
clean. That was the best
His
hair.
deep receding hairlines, they mixed right into it. It was super clean.
It looked so tight that I wondered if he had a headache going in.
That's what I was thinking. But with that, I'm like, could he get cut? Would he cut around his eyebrows? Because it's pulling it so tight.
Or even a weird elbow would cause an easier break.
Because there's so much tension on that skin.
It's a really good question.
Just saying.
Or just a good thing for women to think about. Like, that bitch got her braids on tight.
Exactly.
You elbow to the brow. Elbow to the brow.
Right up in the hairline.
And in that Sugar Shane fight also, do you remember when Sohamthath, he was down, you saw the hesitation in Sugar Shane, he was about to knee him, Sohamthath put his hands up, and then he kicked him, or kneed him, and then Sohamthath looked like, hey, he's not allowed to do that to me.
Oh, on the ground? Yeah. He tried to play the game, and it was like O'Malley was right in to the body. You can kick to the body on the ground.
Patience.
Right.
So I just really like that about Sugar Shane.
Changing of the gardish to an extent this card really happened. Piles out of there. That was a new guy he fought. Stamen was a new guy. Freaking Ortiz. Not so much O'Malley, who was another new guy. Hernandez was a new guy, essentially.
I loved it. I thought it was a good fight night.
It was a good fight night. It really was. A lot of split decisions, a lot of fun stuff, but the commentating...
Shitty judging, great fights. Great fighters.
Great commentary. Yeah.
Great commentary.
Right. Seeing Joe Rogan get on the ground, all-time high. We have never seen that before.
Oh, yeah.
Never, ever seen that. BJ Penn coming out and rolling with Cyborg was fun as hell.
Cool moment.
Sean O'Malley as well coming out and doing his own and just not taking no for an answer. So much we can learn from this card. So much you can keep learning here at LatB when you subscribe, when you get on these bets, when you're making money.
We love you. And see, you can hit these buttons right here. I always want to do that my whole life. Hit these buttons right here. Make sure you like and subscribe, or maybe hit another episode. And hopefully the show just keeps getting better, tighter locked, more precise, like an android, like a cyborg.
True. That's more than me!
That was a good